to 121, 126 degrees. If you point one of those laser thermometers at the ground in the summertime, it honestly is like 140, 160. So we're going to make a concrete swap out based on the temperature for that portion of the work later. We're also going to look at a scope change that involves a design change that what we think a water treatment plant was founded on based on what it is now. And then we're going to look at distinct phases of the project. So we're going to go through all three phases, not spending a lot of time on it, but infrastructure, the capital project itself, and then the remediation at the end of it. Then we're going to do the fun math, which is the reforecasting of the productivity based on what we've actually done. So a lot of cool stuff for today. I won't spend a lot of time on this at all. We're just saying, bottom line is there's a lot of changes out there going on and an acceleration of the work that we need to do and the maintenance of it and the cost of it. So that's going to drive us today to do some of the work we're going to do. Let's go to the next slide. This is a specific example on TRVA, but again, we're going to make a design change, and then we're going to just kind of cover why this stuff doesn't work usually. It doesn't work usually because there's a delay in the reporting data itself. That's not good unless we've got a centralized system, and kind of going through the inaccuracies of it. Hard dollar gives us the ability to take the yellow buckets, which is us, build the cost model estimate out, measure the progress on top of that, and then take all the stuff from the other systems like the design takeoff system, bring the quantities in, integrate it into the schedule, whether it's Microsoft Project or P6, and then go into finance. So pass that data into, from a budget perspective, into the ERP system, and then receive data back like the actuals, quantities, and things, relative data from HR and inventory masters back into hard dollar. All on the cost and productivity database on the bottom there, which is the yellow project cost management bucket. So we're going to focus a little bit, just to summarize on this, is keeping the data where it kind of belongs, master data for ERP and the ERP system for cost codes, account codes, rules, cash flows, etc. And then on the project data side, all of the budgetary estimate, productivity resources, control data, man hours, equipment hours, crew time, notes, all that stuff on the hard dollar side, left and right. To detail or not to detail, it's always the same here. I think what we won't spend a lot of time on codes today, but understanding where the reconciliation will come from between hard dollar or your cost management system, hopefully it's hard dollar, and the ERP system to get back from a high-level phase code approach back down to a kind of a detailed phase code approach and work packages along the way. And then the next slide. So a couple things today at reconciliation, eliminating internal speculation for ERP reconciliation from the system of record for the project operationally to ERP, reporting on summary, open the progress of the vendor input, so we're allowing the subcontractors and others to kind of input their time, quantities, man hours, those types of things. Leveraging the schedule, which is going to be critical. We put like 3 examples of that into, I think, today's demo. And then standardizing the work breakdown structure so that there's consistency, so we can actually have something to measure against, and we can look back 5 years and understand kind of history that we've had. And then we'll go to the next slide. You know, and primarily, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but primarily this has always been one of those things where it's been a focus on the estimator, a focus on project delivery and project controls. But every meeting we're into right now and everything that we go to, this data from a cost and productivity perspective is relevant to like everyone that we see up here plus a few more. But I listed some, which is, you know, really the CFO controller from a cash flow perspective, procurement to help get a better handle on hedging those material purchases and understanding when they come into play, especially with the integration into the schedule, but having the resources there. The scheduler planner to not necessarily be scheduling the work out, obviously, but scoping the work through the right tool. And then the alternate role, providing the information to the owner if it's the contractor, and vice versa if I'm the owner, and getting information from the contractor. So all relevant roles. Then we'll go to the next slide. And this kind of just does a quick overview of where the data kind of flows through, how it can flow to the ERP system, where the data might come from the budget side, and so on and so forth. So let's go to the next slide. Scenario 1, just to recap, put the bottom of the bun on the sandwich here. The bottom of the bun is the material shortage, but in this case we're going to use a concrete example where we're going to change out the type of concrete that we're going to use because of the temperature. So let me turn it over to Ryan Krabeck, and let's go at it.
Excellent. Thanks, Ron. So as Ron mentioned, we're going to go through 4 different examples today, each of which are going to be represented in a scenario or be presented in a scenario. So the first scenario, we are going to utilize a hard dollar project here, and this particular project is going to be relevant to a wastewater treatment plant, and we've got our cost breakdown structure here. And in this case, we have taken our estimate, and now we have started to build out our schedule as well, and have been exposed to potential start and finish dates for each of our activities. So we brought our the scope of the project, cost, and now we have that time element in place. And as a result, we've realized that a majority of the work where we will be dealing with concrete material is going to be taking place in the summertime. And here in Arizona, as Ron mentioned, it gets very, very hot. And as we're going ahead and pouring that concrete, we want to make sure that we control the curing of the concrete. We don't want it to cure too quickly, to avoid any cracking. So as a result, we now want to add ice to the concrete itself. But of course, by adding ice, we're going to be now accruing some additional costs for our concrete material. So what we're going to show here is how we can go into our existing estimate and easily identify those the cement material that is going to be used on the activities within that time period, and we can swap it out with a new concrete material cost that is going to account, again, for the cost of ice. So in this particular situation here, we're identifying the material that is currently in our estimate, and then we will identify the new concrete material that we want to swap it out. So as you can see, the 92.44 per cubic yard of the concrete 4,000 PSI is now going to be swapped out with the $105 per cubic yard. So once I've gone through that process, I press OK. We also give you a list of the particular activities that this material is on. And again, going back to, we've now scheduled this, we have our potential start and finish dates, so we know that these particular items do not fall within those summer months. So we're only going to swap out the concrete with ice on these particular items. So once I've done that, it will swap out those resources, and it will go ahead and update the cost of our project. So in a matter of, I guess under a minute, I was able to, identify all of the items within my estimate and swap out an updated resource cost due to the conditions of this particular scenario. And please note that the changes are accounted for. There's a complete changes log in hard dollar, which we'll take a look at here in a moment, where you can analyze all of the details of that change and truly understand the cost impacts it's had on your estimate. So the second scenario is going to be around maybe more detailed design information. Right? So in this case, we have an estimate that we put together, and it was based on some high-level design plans. And now that we've gone through the process, we've received some more detailed design plans. And as a result, we can come in utilizing hard dollars integration into design and takeoff software. We can go ahead and account and I guess redo that takeoff. And as a result, we can bring in those new quantities right into hard dollar and have them associated with their current cost item or scope item. So in this case, if we were to scroll down in our estimate, and we will identify the item here that we've changed. Okay, so if we see here, we've got this particular scope item. Here it is in hard dollar from the original estimate. And you'll notice here that it's got a quantity of 4. Well, with the new design, we now have a quantity of 6. So we want to update that, but also update anything associated to this. So if we look at this particular activity, it's actually made up of multiple subordinate activities as well. So for every, 4 cubic yards, you've got the association of its subordinate items below, as well as the costs. So as I bring over this scope change, what I want you to notice or keep an eye out is for not only are we updating the quantity here, but it will update the quantities of the assembly as well as the cost. So let me go ahead, I'll update that. And once I've updated that, again, we see went from 4 to 6, it's updated our costs, and it's also updated the quantities of our assembly. So this example here is really representing in an integrated environment as you go through the estimating process and get more detailed design, which require maybe some updating of quantities in your estimate. You can use an integrated environment to kind of expedite that process without compromising the accuracy or integrity of your estimate. Earlier, I mentioned the changes log in hard dollar. So currently, we've changed a quantity within our estimate, and we also swapped out a resource. So if I were to go into hard dollar's changes log, we should now notice that we've got a material swap change as well as a quantity change. And if I were to expand that, you'll see that this was the item that we just went from a value of 4 to 6. And immediately we can see from a total project cost perspective, what was the cost before, what was it after, and what was that dollar value impact of this change. In addition to that, if we wanted to dig down into it a little bit deeper, go ahead and use this particular material swap. If I double click on that, I'm now looking at the actual change record itself, where I can really analyze the change and understand how did that impact my direct costs versus my indirect costs. Maybe it was an activity that with the quantity change, it maybe impacted labor costs as well as equipment costs and material costs. And also analysis on how that maybe affected the hours or duration of the actual activity. So hard dollar gives you that visibility into that change to really allow you to understand the implications of the change. And in this case, there's 2 different examples of changes here. So let's go on to our next example, which is really going to be based around recognizing escalation. So we've got a long-term project. It's multi-year, and again, now that we've taken our estimate and we've scheduled it and understand, where it falls on a timeline perspective, we want to account for possible escalations maybe in certain time periods of the project. Right? So in this case, we've been privileged to some maybe outside information that there could be some expected labor shortages in 2013. So we want to look at our current estimate, still being in the pre-construction phase, and we want to go ahead and account for possible labor shortages in 2013. So in a hard dollar, you're able to go ahead and build different time-phased tables. Right? So in this case, we are going to look at a labor shortage escalation. Right? And in this case, we are going to want to only apply this rate to items that fall within the 2013. So as I go through, starting to identify and apply those parameters, right? So we're going to run through the end of 2013. Right? And as a result, what it's going to show me here on the right-hand side is all of the costs by category that fall within the year 2013 in my project the way it's currently scheduled and currently estimated. And the specific scenario here, we want to apply an escalation rate to just the labor. So I can simply apply the rate here right on labor, which then will calculate that escalation rate for that time period, specifically to the costs that fall within that time period. Now, in addition to that, for whatever reason, you can break down that labor cost category and really pinpoint into maybe other labor type costs that are accrued or estimated in your project, and apply at that lower, more granular level. So again, in this scenario, we've seen that by bringing together your scope, cost, and again, time into your estimate, you're able to build these time phase type tables and account for, applying factors such as, escalations to labor as a result of, again, maybe some information that one has found out. So our last scenario today, as Ron mentioned, is going to be from the tracking standpoint. So we put, we put our estimate together. We've won the work, or we've started to execute the project, and now we are taking time, we're capturing time and all of the relevant information from the field, and we're bringing that and marrying it back together to our estimated values, and starting to generate our reports to help us, manage the cost and productivity of our projects. So within Hard Dollar, in our cost or our job tracking register, Hard Dollar gives you the opportunity to track by account code, phase code, activity code, at any level of detail that you would like. And in this case, we've got a particular activity here within our project where we have taken some time against it, and as we collect the information, bring it back into the system, again, having our estimated values or our planned values, and looking at our as-built to date values, we get that immediate feedback on, our performance, both from a cost perspective as well as, other areas, whether it's understanding your productivity and quantities complete, your man hours, equipment hours. If you're on the contractor side, looking at your profit. So again, by bringing all of that together and getting all of that information into a single system, you're able to have these results available to you to perform that analysis. Now, in addition to that, you're going to have the opportunity to forecast. And in Hard Dollar, we give you multiple options to, multiple variables to drive your forecast, whether it's driving your forecast from your planned production versus your latest as-built production, or lastly, your average as-built production. So a scenario would be, from an estimated standpoint, our productivity that was estimated, maybe it was off a little bit. Maybe we found out that in this case here, we planned that we're going to do 288 square feet per day, whereas, now that we've been putting time against it, we're realizing that, wow, our average is around 318. A 10% improvement to what we actually planned. And if we look at our latest, it's 375. And so in this case here, looking at our forecast details from a cost perspective, if we continue at this pace and, we're looking at a cost overrun of just over $1,000, but that's being based on our, on our planned production. But we give you that opportunity to really look at your forecast in different perspectives. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the scenario, this is all a result of centralizing all of your project's cost and productivity data in a centralized system where your estimated values come together with your actual values and the time elements to give you these types of results.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So, kind of just to quickly recap, there are a couple things. One is we looked at the concrete trade out, we looked at the design change, and then we kind of did a couple things here on forecasting. To make this simple, what we're really doing here is we're taking the assumptions from the cost model, using that as our production data to measure it against, and then showing what the expected results are based on current productivity, average productivity, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of ways for us to kind of slice and dice it here and provide reports as to what our expectations are based on current productivity. All of these things kind of rally around the examples that we used earlier. Normally, we would have some questions kind of along the way. Do me a favor, Ryan, can you click the open, yeah, there we go. If you have any questions, this is a great place to ask. We're going to write in the chat area. If you have any questions, do me a favor. Can you just type them in the chat arena if you've got any questions that are outstanding on anything that we went through today, either around cost planning, design changes, the productivity tracking, forecasting, or how the weather is here. Whatever you got, whatever questions you come up with, we're game. So. Unless this was so stellar that there just wasn't any questions because it's just crystal clear. Let me know if you have any questions. If you don't, we'll have the contact information right after for the slide presentation, and we'll send that to you as well. See if you think of something later around kind of how to accomplish any of this stuff. Happy to take you through it even one-on-one and kind of show some of the more specific things that we do as well, and then how we handle certain situations. Happy to do that as well too. So let's go to the last slide here. Yep. I'll keep going. There we go. So my email address is here as well as my direct number, as well as Ryan's as well too. So if you come up with anything, let me know. Do me a favor, Ryan. Let's open that one more time.
Oh, looks like there is a question. No. Okay. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
There we go. Let's go ahead. Okay, so it looks like we've got 2 different questions here. Your software is able to estimate costs.
Okay, yeah. So I guess first question is your software statement and question at the same time. Your software is able to estimate costs. Yes, absolutely. That's part of the product is really the cost estimation side of it as well as productivity. And we own that data really between the ERP system as well as the planning system on the other side of it for schedule. How does Hard Dollar do field data capture, time, materials, expenses from the field? Okay, so we do that in a variety of ways. There's 3 mechanisms of collections that we use. The API is our strongest, so we collect time through the API, which is a service that Hard Dollar sets up, and that service listens for updates from the field. As those changes come in and are presented to it, so we'll set it up, not to get, we don't have to be mega technical, but we set it up on a port that listens, and then when we receive the updated time information from the field, that data is collected through that service, and then is updated into the data warehouse and updated against what we saw, that last screen that Ryan showed on progress. So every entry, if you remember, kind of the last screen that we showed that had the little graph on it, the very bottom of that is the time entry portion of it. Each time that we receive time, data is entered into that field from those outside systems, quantities, man hours, labor, notes, those types of things, posted into that entry screen, and then it goes through a process to be approved and et cetera, and collected into Hard Dollar. Hard Dollar also has the capability to utilize timesheets. So for the timesheet collector, to receive data directly through the timesheets and then into the Hard Dollar system. And then the other mechanism is really kind of just direct entry, either direct into the timesheet warehouse directly or directly into to the project activity line item level. So there's kind of a variety of ways that we do it. I think the idea from a best practice perspective is to be the least disruptive from the field as we possibly can, hence the variable ways that we can collect, because sometimes it's and I hate to say this, but sometimes it's let's keep spreadsheets from the field because that's what they're used to using, even though we're the anti-spreadsheets guys, and so we're the least disruptive to start with, and then we'll just migrate into something that's a lot more cooler and sophisticated, you know, at a later date. So it just really depends on what the situation is, and we want to make it as least disruptive as we possibly can.
So there was a question here. Can you hover over the man-hour detail tab? I most certainly can, although in this particular activity or in this particular example, we were collecting quantities and costs and not tracking man-hours, although Hard Dollar has capabilities to, as I mentioned earlier, to track man-hours as well as equipment hours.
Yeah, and we use our imagination just a little bit because it does tell the story pretty well. So planned man-hours total on this thing is 2,078. To date, we put in historically 70.83. Expended, we haven't put anything in there whatsoever. But from an imagination perspective, if you can imagine, as the project's moving along, man-hours and quantities are being input into the system. Those graphs are being tracked both at the productivity level of what the quantities that we achieve are, as well as the man-hours. So we're tracking CPI, you know, as well as what our productivity rate is for each activity, and at the job level, the area level, the discipline level, and then in this case, the activity level that we're drilling down here. Those direct entries on the bottom, that's what I was referring to a second ago. So as we receive entries from different systems, whether it's the ERP system, the timesheet collector system, the direct entries that we have here, they're all being posted against that and then being progressed on here so that we can actually see those variants. And in a perfect world, probably my favorite way to kind of describe this is if we go back to the current status here. In a perfect world, if I only had 5 minutes a day to think about life and understand where I'm really at in a project, if I was at the highest level, you know, this column right here is really what I planned on doing right across the board, all for my quantities, my durations, my man hours, all that detail stuff is behind it. As built, the actuals are either coming from directly in Hard Dollar or from the ERP system, and then the remaining here, of course. If this was an awesome example, which is not, by the way, but if that was an awesome example and I only had 5 minutes a day, I could look down that column on percent of plan and say, okay, well, if I'm 13% down on quantities, then I should be about 13% duration down on days. My man hours would be about 13% if life worked out exactly like it was going to be and everybody showed up when they were supposed to be and equipment was even. Looking just straight down that column would be an indicator for me to understand, you know, where things are at. If I'm massively out of whack, depending on where I'm at in the project, I'd be able to know that. So, you know, from a 5-minute manager perspective, this is one of the best 5-minute manager one of the best 5-minute manager screens you can have. In addition to all the graphical stuff and all that kind of things. But this is probably my favorite in terms of knowing where you're at with life all the time and understanding that. That's a really good question, though. Any other questions? Okay. And again, if there's any specifics that you want to cover in detail on some of these things where we want to really drill down in detail, that'd be awesome to do. We can set up the time and go through in 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 10 hours or whatever you want to do on it. We're happy to do that. But one of the things we want to try to cover every month is how do we apply real-life things into kind of being practical and being proactive and kind of getting ahead of issues before they become problems, you know, and where do we do that in Hard Dollar and how do we proactively address it? So we hope these things are informative, and a lot of times we share a lot of statistics. This time we didn't do it so much this month on the environmental side, but if you have suggestions, the reason why I bring that up is if you have suggestions on things that you'd like to see in the workshops that we're not covering, I really would love to hear that. And if you have feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, you know, whether it's negative feedback, I hope it's all positive, but if not, I'm happy to get the negative feedback too. And I apologize for the audio stuff up front. We'll make a note of that in the future and make sure we pay our phone bill as well too. So anyways, thanks for joining us today. I'll send you a link out to this PowerPoint. If you're interested in getting a copy of that, just send me a note that to get a download, and we'll send it over to you. Our next month we have another workshop planned as well. Hope you attend that, and we appreciate your time today. I know it's really valuable, and if you'd like to see more of what you saw today, please give us a shout, and we're happy to go through it with you. Have a great day, everybody, and let us know if there's more that we can share with you, and we appreciate you joining us for the workshop today. Take care, and have a great day.